Welcome to Science Chapter 3. Health is our greatest wealth. Let's discover the secrets of a healthy life.
Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into something that literally impacts every single one of us every single day. Our health. But, we're going to look at it through a lens that might just completely flip how you view your daily routine. We're breaking down some fascinating source material that calls health exactly what it is, the ultimate treasure. We're going to figure out what it truly means to be healthy, and we're actually starting with a surprisingly relatable human story rather than a bunch of medical jargon. Let's jump right in. Section 1. A student's struggle and the real impact of isolation. We usually think of health as an adult problem, right? Like worrying about blood pressure or cholesterol. But consider the journey of this typical 8th grader. This kid recently moved to a brand new school, totally new city, and man, that is a daunting experience for anybody. In this totally new environment, he didn't have any friends yet, and to make matters a bit tougher, his parents were super busy. So he just found himself feeling incredibly lonely and isolated. It's a deeply emotional challenge, for sure. But as we're going to see, this kind of stuff doesn't just stay in your head. So to cope with all that isolation, he turned heavily to his phone, just completely immersing himself in social media. But instead of helping him feel connected, it actually triggered this massive downward spiral. The source notes he just completely stopped trying to make real-world friends. And here's the crazy part. Here is where the emotional literally becomes physical. His situation deteriorated into real, tangible symptoms. He started getting severe headaches, he began losing weight, and he was suffering from a serious lack of proper sleep. His screen time and isolation were directly damaging his physical body. Which brings us to Section 2, the bigger health picture and our societal crisis. Because everyone, that student's story, it's not just a one-off thing. It's honestly a microcosm of a much larger crisis we're facing right now. Think of it like a giant public health bulletin board, just covered in red flags. Right at the center are these stark warnings that completely mirror what our 8th grader went through. Getting sucked into social media is spurring a massive rise in loneliness across the board. And when kids ramp up their screen time, it leads directly to a huge spike in obesity, sleep disorders, and anxiety. We are literally looking at a widespread societal crisis driven by how we live today. To put that into perspective, look at this absolutely staggering figure. An ICMR report reveals that more than 100 million people in India are currently diabetic. That is 11.4% of the population. And the primary driving force here? Fast food. The data clearly pins fast food as one of the leading causes of diabetes. It's just a huge wake-up call showing how our everyday, seemingly small dietary choices are compounding into an unbelievable national health statistic. And it doesn't stop there. The data highlights another major issue deeply tied to these modern habits. 28.6% of the Indian population is currently classified as obese. When you mix a highly sedentary lifestyle, sitting around with prolonged screen time, with that fast food diet we just talked about, well, you start to see exactly why this number is so troublingly large. But hold on, we can't just point fingers at our personal habits alone. The source material explicitly calls out air pollution as a public health emergency. It's actually one of the leading risk factors for our overall health. The text heavily reminds us that we need to be actively tracking the Air Quality Index, or AQI. Having a clean environment is absolutely crucial to keeping us healthy and feeling good. It's a really powerful reminder that true health is this combination of how we treat our bodies, but also the state of the environment our bodies are actually living in. Moving into Section 3, defining true health and holistic well-being. So with all these internal and external factors flying at us, we really need to completely redefine what it actually means to be healthy. The World Health Organization has this official definition that totally shatters the old way of thinking. They define health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. This is a total game changer because it throws out the idea that just because you don't have a cough or a fever, you're automatically perfectly healthy. The absolute crucial takeaway here is that true health rests on 3 inseparable pillars: physical, mental, and social. The source document spells this out so wonderfully. It basically says, hey, even if you eat the most nutritious food on the planet and you live in a perfectly pristine environment, if you're lonely or sad or disconnected from friends and family, you simply aren't truly healthy. Actually, spending time talking, laughing, and just having fun with the people you love is presented as a literal medical necessity for a healthy mind and body. How awesome is that? All right, let's hit Section 4, habits for a better life and taking action today. So now that we know what complete well-being actually looks like, how do we reclaim it? The source draws a really stark contrast between empowering routines and, well, our favorite yet harmful defaults. On the good side, it highly emphasizes maintaining a balanced diet, practicing yoga for the mind, body, and soul, which, by the way, specifically reduces anxiety and boosts concentration, and keeping up with regular exercise and solid personal hygiene. But then on the flip side, the bad habits are exactly what's dragging us down. Things like excessive screen watching, which the source notes literally causes dry eye disease in kids, alongside devouring fast food, hitting snooze to sleep late, and skipping breakfast entirely. Now, you might be thinking, do small changes really matter? Well, the data shows incredibly simple actions yield massive measurable impacts. Get this, just the act of regular hand washing reduces infection rates by a whopping 50%. That's huge. The source also shares this fantastic diet mantra. Just try reducing the amount of oil in your diet by a mere 10%. That's it. It's these small, consistent, actionable steps, like making sure you're drinking safe water and cutting back on sugar, that actively prevent major vector-borne and lifestyle diseases. As we wrap up this explainer, the source material leaves us with a really profound exercise, and I want to pass it on to you. Take a second to reflect on your own daily choices. Look back at those good and bad habits we just discussed. How many of those positive actions are you practicing today? Are you nurturing your social relationships with the exact same energy you put into monitoring your physical diet? So, what does true holistic health actually look like for you? I really hope this breakdown has given you the tools to figure that out. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.
Welcome to today's explainer. You know, every single day, your body acts like an absolute fortress. It's constantly defending its borders against this invisible army of microscopic invaders. Today, we're going to decode the brilliant strategies our bodies use to stay safe and look at how science eventually came along and gave those natural defenses a massive, massive upgrade.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First up, communicable diseases. Then, non-communicable diseases. Third, our immune system. And finally, vaccines.
All right, part 1. Communicable diseases, the invaders.
So the battle lines of human disease are pretty clearly drawn. On one side, you've got communicable diseases. These are your infectious bugs, viruses, bacteria, parasites that literally jump from person to person or from the environment straight into us. On the other side, we have non-communicable diseases. Now, these don't spread through contact. Instead, they develop internally over time, usually driven by lifestyle or environmental factors. Getting this core difference down is absolutely crucial because it's the foundation for everything we're exploring today.
So how do these external invaders actually breach our walls? Well, for some, the very air we breathe becomes a microscopic highway. Viruses that cause the common flu, chickenpox, measles, and bacteria causing tuberculosis, they just travel right through the air. When someone who's infected coughs or sneezes, these tiny threats hitch a ride on those droplets and fly straight into our respiratory pathways. Once they're inside, they cause all sorts of havoc, from sniffles and mild fevers to full-body rashes and really severe lung issues.
But hey, the air isn't the only entry point. Have you ever had a terrible stomach bug that just completely knocked you out? Yeah, that's often the result of invaders sneaking in through contaminated food and water. Diseases like cholera, typhoid, hepatitis A, and even parasitic roundworms that cause ascariasis, they use our digestive system as a sort of Trojan horse. They bypass our initial defenses, set up shop right in our intestines, and lead to severe dehydration, high fevers, and just major discomfort.
Then, there are the invaders that don't even bother with our airways or our food. They use a direct delivery service. Mosquitoes. They basically act as flying syringes carrying threats like malaria and dengue directly into our bloodstream. By literally piercing our skin, which is, our body's primary physical wall, these insect-borne diseases bypass our outer defenses entirely. And that's what causes those severe, bone-breaking fevers and intense joint pain.
But listen, we are far from helpless here. We can cut off that food and water route just by boiling our drinking water and washing our hands thoroughly with soap. We can block that airborne highway by wearing masks in crowded places, covering our mouths when we cough, and isolating those who are sick. And for the insects, mosquito nets and repellents are for sure our best shields. Honestly, simple, everyday hygiene is quite literally our frontline defense.
Moving on to Section 2, non-communicable diseases, the internal breakdown.
Let's look at how this impacts us on a macro level. Here's a pretty sobering fact. India currently has the world's largest diabetic population. Now, this isn't a virus you just catch on a bus. It's largely driven by prolonged hormonal imbalances, a lack of physical exercise, and poor dietary habits. You see, these are chronic long-term illnesses, and they're shaped heavily by how we live, what we eat, and the environment we're in.
This crucial link between our daily habits and our long-term health was beautifully illuminated by a pioneering Indian biochemical researcher named Dr. Kamal Ranadive. Her groundbreaking research directly linked the risk of cancer to hormones, diet, and the use of tobacco. Her work proved, without a doubt, that our daily lifestyle choices aren't just minor details. They are absolutely critical factors that directly impact our long-term health and internal stability.
Okay, Section 3, our immune system, the defense force.
So the crucial point here is this. Even when we share the exact same environment as people who are sick, we don't always get sick ourselves. Why is that? Well, it's because you have an elite natural defense force constantly on patrol. Your immune system doesn't just blindly fight. Actually, it actively learns to recognize specific harmful microbial invaders, memorizes their weaknesses, and then launches highly targeted attacks to neutralize them. It is basically the ultimate, highly intelligent security system.
Which brings us to Section 4, Vaccines, a historical discovery.
Think of a vaccine as a high-tech training simulation for your cells. Take the tetanus shot, for example. It uses inactive, completely harmless versions of the toxins produced by tetanus bacteria. It can't actually hurt you, but to your body, it looks exactly like the real enemy. Your immune system spots it, figures out exactly how to destroy it, and then keeps that battle plan on file. So, if the real, dangerous bacteria ever enters your body later on, your immune system instantly knows how to crush it. It's brilliant.
It's such an ingenious mechanism, right? But it kind of makes you wonder, who actually figured this out? How was the very first vaccine discovered, especially back when we barely even understood what microscopic organisms were? Well, for that, we have to travel back to the late 18th century. At the time, smallpox was this terrifying, deadly disease ravaging the globe. But an English doctor named Edward Jenner noticed something pretty bizarre. Milkmaids, who often caught a very mild disease from cows called cowpox, basically never caught the deadly smallpox. So, in a rather bold experiment, Jenner actually took sap from a cowpox blister and exposed a young boy to it. The boy got mildly ill with cowpox, recovered quickly, and just like that, was completely immune to smallpox. No way, right? But it worked.
What Jenner observed in those milkmaids and tested with that boy is what we now scientifically call acquired immunity. Basically, by exposing the body to a harmless or weakened version of a pathogen, your body's defense force acquires the specific knowledge it needs to protect itself. It literally remembers the invader for the future, providing a lifelong shield.
But here is a truly fascinating piece of historical context you might not know. Long before modern vaccines were formalized in the West, India had its own profound scientific heritage regarding acquired immunity. Traditional Indian practitioners, known as tikadars, practiced a method called variolation. They would actually take material from mild smallpox scabs and introduce it to the skin of healthy individuals. This safely triggered a mild response to build up that exact same life-saving immunity.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate triumph of this whole scientific journey. Thanks to that foundational knowledge of acquired immunity and a massive, coordinated global vaccination effort, smallpox, a disease that once claimed millions and millions of lives, experienced a dramatic decline. Today, it has been completely and globally eradicated. We literally wiped a deadly disease off the face of the earth, simply by training our own internal fortresses.
And it's an incredible victory for humanity. But, it leaves us with a really critical thought for today. We defeated external threats like smallpox with vaccines and hygiene. But as our lifestyles become a bit more sedentary and our diets change, the threat profile is shifting toward those internal breakdowns we talked about. So I'll leave you with this. Between the hands you wash, the food you eat, and the habits you build every day, is your body's fortress ready for whatever comes next? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning and stay healthy.
Hey everyone, and welcome. Let's just dive right into today's explainer, uncovering the science of health, immunity, and superbugs. We are going on a really fascinating journey today to decode the invisible medical battles happening all around us and honestly, inside of us every single day. We'll be exploring some of our biggest scientific victories in healthcare, while also confronting some of the most pressing microscopic threats we currently face. If you love understanding how things work on a fundamental level and you want to know how global health actually impacts your daily life, you are absolutely in the right place.
So, I want you to imagine a world where the absolute strongest medicines we rely on to survive just stop working. Think about how much we depend on a quick prescription to get back on our feet after a really rough infection. What if that safety net completely vanished? It's kind of a chilling thought, right? But it's actually a reality we're inching closer to every single year. Today, we're going to understand exactly why that's happening, what science is doing to stop it, and what role you play in the solution.
Here's a quick look at our agenda. We are covering India's vaccine leadership, the antibiotic resistance threat. How does resistance spread? Health science heroes, treating and preventing disease, and finally, health is true wealth.
Let's start with Section 1, India's vaccine leadership.
To kick things off, we really have to recognize the incredible role India plays on the global healthcare stage. India has emerged as one of the absolute largest vaccine producers in the world, and the scale of this operation is just staggering. They've successfully delivered over 2 billion vaccination doses domestically, but the impact extends way beyond domestic borders. Under the Vaccine Maitri initiative, 24 crore life-saving doses were supplied to over 100 different countries. It's just a powerful reminder of how robust domestic manufacturing can act as a critical, stabilizing lifeline for the entire global health infrastructure.
Moving on to Section 2, the antibiotic resistance threat.
All right, so shifting from those massive global triumphs, we have to talk about a hidden, microscopic crisis that really threatens to undo so much of that progress. Think of antibiotics as guided missiles designed specifically to seek out and destroy harmful bacteria. They're meant to rapidly kill off the germs that cause severe infections, allowing our bodies to heal. But here's the catch. The process isn't always perfectly effective. Sometimes the bacteria find a way to fight back.
When antibiotics are used, the vast majority of the standard bacteria are successfully wiped out. But occasionally, a tiny, entirely random mutation allows just one bacterium to survive the chemical attack. That lone survivor then adapts, it multiplies rapidly without any competition, and it turns into a resistant superbug. And it gets even more alarming. These superbugs can actually transfer their mutated immunity to other completely different germs nearby. It's like they're sharing the secret code for survival.
And because of that single surviving mutation, a highly treatable everyday infection evolves into a resistant superbug. Suddenly, our standard, go-to treatments are completely shattered. The duration of illnesses increases dramatically, the risk of severe complications skyrockets, and doctors are basically forced to use much more complex, expensive, and harsher treatments just to try and save the patient.
Section 3. How does resistance spread?
Before we track how these microscopic superbugs travel from their origin points right into our communities, we gotta clear up a massive public misconception. We've all known someone who demands antibiotics for a common cold or a sore throat. And hey, maybe we've even done it ourselves. But colds and flu are viral infections. Antibiotics are completely mathematically useless against viruses. Taking them for a cold is literally like trying to use a fire extinguisher on a flood. Taking them when you have a virus does absolutely nothing to heal you, but it perfectly creates the environment to breed those resistant superbugs inside your body.
And this resistance builds into a surprisingly wide, interconnected ecosystem. You know, it's not just about humans popping too many unnecessary pills. When agricultural industries needlessly inject farm animals with antibiotics simply to promote faster growth, well, those drugs enter our food chain through agricultural runoff, crops, milk, and meat. At the exact same time, resistance spreads rapidly in hospitals, moving from patient to patient through unclean surfaces or indirect contact. It is a highly connected web where a vulnerability in one area quickly becomes a massive threat to everyone.
Section 4. Health Science Heroes.
Thankfully, we aren't fighting this battle unarmed. Science is full of incredible, happy accidents that have literally saved humanity. Back in 1928 in London, Alexander Fleming was studying harmful bacteria when he noticed something really strange in a discarded petri dish. A random mold had grown, and it was literally stopping the surrounding bacteria right in its tracks. That serendipitous moment gave the world its very first antibiotic, penicillin. And ever since that fateful day, scientists have been racing around the clock to stay one step ahead of disease.
Bringing it closer to the present day, we have modern heroes like Dr. Mahajan Kishan Bon, a highly renowned Indian doctor and scientist who served as the Secretary of the Department of Biotechnology. He dedicated his entire life to this fight. He played an absolutely pivotal role in developing the rotavirus vaccine, which is a true, monumental breakthrough that has saved countless children globally from severe, life-threatening diarrhea.
Dr. Bunn had a core belief that was simple but so profound. Research should be used to create affordable healthcare. He didn't want science to just sit idly in an academic lab, celebrated but completely unused.
He firmly believed that research and innovation must directly translate into affordable, accessible healthcare for the broader population. He drove massive positive change in India's health and biotechnology sectors by making absolutely certain that cutting-edge science actually reached the people who needed it the most. Section 5. Treating and preventing disease. So how does this incredible science actually protect us? Well, first, we got to know our enemy. Disease generally falls into two main camps. Communicable diseases are the outside invaders, the infectious germs and viruses. Non-communicable diseases are largely driven by lifestyle, genetics, and environment, things like diabetes or heart disease. To fight the infectious invaders, vaccines are our ultimate training ground. They ingeniously use dead or weakened parts of germs to safely teach our immune system how to fight off the real thing, creating a biological memory. And across both types of disease, early diagnosis is always the ultimate key to preventing major, life-altering complications.
But keeping these medical breakthroughs working requires our active help. To avoid rendering all the hard work of these dedicated scientists utterly useless, we must use medications, especially antibiotics, only when strictly necessary and exactly as prescribed by a medical professional. Finishing your entire prescription, even if you start feeling amazing on day 2, is exactly what stops those mutating superbugs from returning stronger. Using them correctly keeps these treatments effective for the next generation.
Section 6. Health is true wealth. At the end of the day, your daily choices build the ultimate foundation of your immunity. Long before synthetic antibiotics existed, traditional Indian practices like Ayurveda, Siddha, and Unani utilized natural herbs, oils, and compounds to fortify the body and manage health. Today, modern science totally agrees that integrating a balanced diet, rich in essential vitamins and minerals, is the absolute bedrock of a robust immune system and fast recovery. And remember, true health isn't just a physical metric. It deeply requires mental happiness and a really strong social foundation as well.
Ultimately, health is far more than just the absence of being sick, right? It is an active, holistic lifestyle choice that you make every single morning. A clean environment, mindful nutritional habits, and daily movement, these are the powerful, everyday actions that build the natural biological defenses keeping us out of the hospital in the first place. When we take care of our baseline health, we drastically lessen our reliance on the medical interventions that are currently under threat.
So, I'm going to leave you with this thought. Now that you understand the incredible science that keeps us alive and the very real, microscopic threat of superbugs that could undo it all, will you rethink your daily habits? Will you stop asking for antibiotics for a simple cold? Will you focus on a holistic, preventative lifestyle? The future of global health isn't just in the hands of brilliant scientists in a lab. It's actually in the small daily choices you make every single day. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Stay curious and stay healthy.
Thanks for watching. Stay healthy, stay curious, and keep learning. See you in the next chapter.